primarily what I was hearing was that they want to know who is a part of this board that's gonna bring about this change to our neighborhood. We want to know that we can trust them.
Of like we do all of these plans, and sometimes we'll request work is done, so we'll request a solution. To get to that solution, a study or a plan needs to be done, but we kind of conveniently ignore that middle part, and we just want the thing to be done the way that we want it to be done.
I'd rather have a comfortable transportation system than it's like super efficient, like, cause I might show up late. It might be alright if the bus is 2 minutes late. It might work out for me, right?
Welcome to the Content Parlor. I'm your host. I should say welcome back, because this is our second installation. We're here talking about urban design and placemaking today with apparently the Looney Tunes. But we're some off-camera stuff, don't mind us. But we're here talking about urban design and placemaking. Super excited about this episode because urban design affects everybody, literally everybody, from where you live at to where you shop at. Affects everybody. And we've got a panel here of people who live and breathe this stuff, and really excited to talk to them today. So we're going to go around and do some introductions. But before we do that, I just want to let you know today's episode is sponsored by the Content Parlor Studio. We're in the Content Parlor Studio, which makes this even sweeter because the whole episode is a big ad, basically.
Yeah.
But the Content Parlor Studio is your one-stop shop for super dope content creation in North Omaha. We have two studios. We have the photo studio, and we're here in the video studio where all the podcasts and video production happens. You can see the cameras, you see the lights, you see the swag, you see the gentlemen. This is where it goes down. So we encourage you to rent the studio. Simply go to stablegray.com/studio and book your appointment today or tomorrow. All right. With that out of the way, let's get into the episode. Manny looks a little nervous over here.
No, I was just waiting. I was just like, I feel like I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, I was just debating. Should I go counterclockwise or clockwise?
Oh, you trying to put me on first?
Yeah,
I was trying to Kenny. I was like, I got time. Kenny's going first.
Clockwise. I mean, that's the way the clocks work. So
yeah.
might as well just keep it going that way.
Yeah. We might as well, but we got to start at noon.
Go clockwise and start here, though.
What are you talking about?
So
I'll go. Okay. All right. All right. I'm ready now. No. So I'm Manne, urban planner, background, grew up in Omaha, a lot of work in neighborhood planning, trails, public spaces, arts, community work, and, I'll just say, kind of sum it up, my perspective of urban planning design and the importance of it is, we got into this, I think, all of us, because we saw the potential to create better places, right? And by that, not just we like it when it looks cool and all that sort of thing, but it's about quality of life. It's about people's lived experiences. So, that's why I got into it for, just seeing how the built environment shapes our lives, and how we have the ability to shape that environment, right? So it's way to, improve everyone's life.
Super dope.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I actually debated going to school to be an urban planner, but by the time I thought about that, I was already in my junior year of college, and at that point I said, let me just finish my finance degree and then I'll see. So my point is I have a lot of respect for the folks who went through the process to actually do that. So
I just want to add too, I was in that same boat too. I went to school first reason I went to school is I had a basketball scholarship. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to challenge anybody, but
Oh, by the way, I'm very athletic.
I went to, that was a while ago, but yes, I'm still very athletic. That's correct.
Okay,
Thank you for noticing. But basketball, and went, and I was always interested in the built environment, but a lot of people around me told me oh yeah, you should go into real estate, which wasn't wrong, but or like, marketing and business administration. And it wasn't until I got done with my undergraduate that I was able to work with like urban planner and in the arts world actually. So that like put me onto like what urban planning was, everyone always, I feel like a lot of people always know like what an architect is, but for me, like when I was younger, it seemed like it was out of reach in a lot of ways, right? It's like architects, I don't know how they come to exist, right?
Yeah.
So that sort of thing, or even the nuances between the different types of architecture or architects, So anyway, like it was a process to get there, and I kind of got there through like community and arts type of work. So a learning, I guess.
Learning.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, yeah, hats off to you, man. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Let's keep the conversation going. We've got the man in blue, not the man in blue and white, but the man in blue.
Oh yeah.
To my left, camera right. What's your name? What do you do? And how can people reach out to you after this episode?
Right. So, yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Davielle Phillips. I'm an architectural designer. So I'm an architect in training. It's a series of 6 exams that you have to take to become a licensed architect, and I've taken past 4 of them.
Okay.
So I have 2 left, and I hope to be done by August. And I'll be fully licensed architect from there. My background, I'm originally from the south side of Chicago. Then I went to school on the north side of Chicago, so it took me like a 2.5-hour commute on the bus one way to get to school. But at this school is a college prep, so I got to declare architecture as a major. And growing up in Chicago, on the south side, my neighborhood was different from, I would say, other people's. Like the places I would go and travel outside of my community. We had boarded up houses, and I had a good time growing up. It's a lot of value in my upbringing. But the neighborhood, I was like, man, I can do something about this. I hope to do something about this. So one day I asked, like, who decides what buildings look like? And my mom told me to Google it. And that's just her immediate answer to any question me and my sisters asked, because we were all asking questions all the time. We were all curious. So I got home and Googled it and saw these beautiful buildings around the world. But I also saw that I can be the one to put those kinds of buildings in my community. So that's why I wanted to get involved, just so I can, the skill sets that I've been blessed with, this curiosity about design and placemaking kind of led me to being an architect. And so, yeah, that's my background. And then socials, mostly on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/dreams to live for. That's dreams number 2, live number 4. Just because I honestly feel like I got plenty of dreams to live for. And so I'll say that handle speaks to me. So that handle is what I use for anything like Instagram, Facebook. You can find me at dreams to live for.
Dreams to live for.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man.
I didn't do my Instagram.
Go ahead. Spit your facts, man. Spit
Go
your
ahead.
stuff.
My Instagram is International Bed and Breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
He's not lying.
No spaces, no breaks. Find me.
Every time I read his handle, I crave IHOP or some type of bed and breakfast
Some
place.
pancakes or something.
The way I came up with my handle is actually just because of travel, right?
South side of Chicago?
No, 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 but just travel, just like I love to travel, so like getting up and just like traveling, and it's like bed and breakfast and then travel, right? Just being on the go, seeing places. So
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
and nothing like a good bed and breakfast when you're traveling, like clutch.
Yeah.
I feel like aside from the length of your handle, there's got to be at least one other person that wishes they had that handle.
I don't think anybody else. Well, maybe I got there first.
Every year somebody
Some
checks
people
it.
try to steal mine too, man.
Do they?
It's crazy. There's a place out in Australia trying to take my name, man.
Oh,
It's
really?
crazy.
Oh.
Put AUS at the end. I'm like, oh.
Always,
But-
man.
Go ahead.
Culture
Kenny, you got it.
vultures.
But
Yeah.
I don't have a fun hand. I should change mine.
What would you change it to?
I would change it to lyrically smitten.
Oh, nice.
All right.
That's
Yeah.
not bad.
There's something about art, poetry, the way that words come together that like pulls you in a different space than where you are, and I like that. Makes you feel lyrically smitten.
I know.
So that's what it could be. We'll let you
But-
do your intro and tell us what it actually is.
What it is, though. Kene Okigbo is my name. I'm a landscape architect, as you all know. I graduated from North Dakota State, born in Nigeria. We moved to Kenya. We moved to Fargo, North Dakota after. That's where NDSU is. So spend some time traveling, appreciate seeing things around the world, seeing solutions around the world, and then trying to pull back those solutions to wherever I'm fortunate enough to be working. I work at RDG Planning and Design firm in town. A lot of my work is inside of the urban design market, so excited for this combo, but I still work on parks and open spaces, still work on college and university, healthcare, whatever I can contribute time, talent to, I want to. Yeah, it's the quick and dirty. Oh,
Nice.
Kene _Okigbo is my actual handle on all of the things. So maybe that needs to change. These are good names. These are
No.
good names.
I want to mention something though. Is of all four of us here, you're definitely the best basketball player. I just gotta let everyone know ahead of time.
I'm glad that is noted on camera, and because you've said it, and because it's been documented, I'll never play again.
Yeah, no need to.
Yeah, the
You've
facts
won.
are known.
You've
Yep.
officially won.
Can I get a close up here? Somebody go out and challenge this brother, okay? Go out, let's go out and let's challenge him to a full court game of basketball. I'm just messing with you.
One-on-one full
This
court.
is disrespectful and this is
One
rude.
on one, full court. Oh man, free shots only.
Before any of the cameras started, I was the most humble person, and now that there's an audience, I'm put on blast.
It's only right, man.
All right.
Yes.
It's just love. It's brotherly
all
love.
good.
Catch me on a tennis court, catch me on a volleyball court, and I'm gonna get my payback.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's the comeback.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this before we jump in. All of us have consistent handles across social media. Coming from a marketing and branding agency, that's impressive. Most people have something on this one, something different on that one. So hats off to you guys having the exact same handle on all the social handles.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, where do we start? So urban planning, architectural design, it just covers so many different areas from residential to commercial. I know there was a dig that was done on us last time about including plants and making
Yeah.
sure that we put green into our spaces.
I was going to
Maybe
bring
we
that
could
up.
start
You
there.
you have not accomplished that task. 0 out of 10.
You
Very
know,
critical.
we've been working on other aspects of the space.
You're right,
And
you're
you
right.
brought the green.
I did,
You brought
I
the
did,
green
I
today,
did.
so we've got some green in this space today. But you know, on a more serious note, when we look at both residential and commercial, including accessory elements to a design is important, right? I just know that because of listening to you guys talk and, you know, having a friend who's in architecture. So where do we start when it comes to building out meaningful architecture, you know, just at a high level, not even at the plants, but where do we start? What makes good design and good architecture, let's just say for Omaha?
Yeah, for me, it's purpose. Like, why are we doing this? What is the meaning behind what we're creating? Whether it's a space for behavioral health services or a space for education, you know, it has to have purpose. Can't just kind of go out there and just build anything. And that'll be my first kind of take on that.
Yeah, so let's go around. What would your thoughts be on that? Would you echo that or add
Yeah.
something to it?
I'd echo it. When you asked the question, I was thinking of the same thing with just different words. That good design is responsive to need. So it's exactly what you're saying. It's just why.
Answering why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar.
I'll add though. I think that when the three of us think of what we consider the best designs, it is taking a base state and then making it better. When we think about trail projects, it's taking a base state and also that like interstitial in between spaces of taking the concept of connectivity and trying to enhance it, taking the concept of health and trying to enhance it, and baking in all of the things that people need in life into a seamless solution. So it's still, like you said it really simply, you said it really beautifully, you said it really effectively and cleanly, just adding words to the first answer.
That's fair.
Now disagree with us.
Yeah.
Do you have
Oh,
something to add to that?
As I will. No, I was gonna say it just depends on the project, right? So it's kind of saying the same thing. It's, you know, whether it's like health or whether it's like housing. It's, you know, what is that intended use and what is the feeling you want to get out of that use, right? So the purpose, what is it for? But then like, how can you improve the experience of whatever that is, right? To Kenny's point, I think. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try to beat y'all.
Well, no, because I think both of you guys, like your answers got me thinking even deeper because it's purposeful, but it's about the people as well. Like, because I think a lot of times where we go over numbers, whether it's finances or we go over ideas for designs and stuff, we need to always be thinking about the people. We can't reduce people and designs to numbers as an example. So like for those behavioral health spaces, what brings people there, and then when people are there, do they feel comfortable? Like if someone's having a hard time and they come into this space and it's not conducive to help bring a sense of calm to whatever they're going through, then is that good design? You know, so that's kind of where my mind started going after hearing you guys.
Yeah, I feel that. And thinking about the people I feel like would make you, or makes me think of just like improving the lived experience, right? You know, there's one of my favorite quotes, I hope I get it right the first time, is like a good city is like a good party because people stay longer than they have to because they're having a good time, right? And it's, I think, you know, that might not be all spaces. You might not want to create all spaces that you want to stay for a long time, but I think a majority of spaces, you know, they're done well when people spend time there, you know, or more time than they necessarily have to. They enjoy it for more than just the transactional nature of the space. Yeah. And I think about that as a city, you know, it's like, then when you think about how are you planning a city or a neighborhood, it's, you know, think about that holistic part of it. Like, let's think about like, how do we want to live in space, not just like, you know, what is it supposed to be type of thing.
So obviously, you know, we were talking off camera about how, and we talked last time about how the zoning in Omaha is very fragmented, to say the least. We've got houses that are zoned for commercial. We've got things very fragmented. So how do we? What is the architectural process to overcome the gap between the current state of the properties, the current state of the zoning, and getting to where the design works for people who live and work in these areas in today's day and age?
Well, I'll start since you mentioned zoning, I guess.
Yeah, you can tee it off.
Yeah, no, so I think like, yeah, the zoning is kind of shot right now, but that's again what like the comprehensive plan is about, trying to adjust some of those things. And there's zoning and setbacks and all the regulations that, you know, it's a lot of times more restrictive than it needs to be. So it disallows for things like better uses, right? I don't think it's necessarily like, when it comes to commercial or residential, those things a lot of times in the city, urban spaces, again, context is important, maybe not all spaces, but a lot of places in East Omaha, the city part, right, the urban part, you can mix those uses. So it's just more about like the form and like the structure and like how you design structures and the landscape to accommodate like how you want to live. The zoning like should, in my opinion, be a little bit more free of use, right? Like you can have mixed uses, commercial, like, you know, that's how you get the bed and breakfast, right? That's how you get the, you know, the corner stores. That's how you get all the things that people generally usually want in their neighborhood to happen in a way. It's just like planning, where does that happen more so. But starting with giving more freedom can help you find those places more effectively, I think. So whatever that means, what do you think?
Well, because now I'm thinking, like, even with zoning overlays, like a TOD district, like transit-oriented development, so a certain zoning overlay like that can help bring transportation, multimodal means of transportation to the people. So how does someone that lives east of 72nd Street get to work, you know, west of 72nd Street? You know, well, now we have the orbit line, and that's in transit-oriented development district or zoning. You know, so what about the north-south connection? You know, because that's one of the primary connections that we need, north-south. So where's the transit-oriented development zoning overlay for north-south connection? I think that's what is a need in our community. You know, and I believe it's being studied right now. But you know, people want to see progress. Like why aren't there bus shelters? On North 24th Street, there might be one nowadays, but where are the other ones? Like, so if we had a lot of rain recently, and people are getting rained on, and just standing there, just waiting on the bus, so they don't have anywhere to stand in the sheltered space while they're waiting, and I think that's a bad experience to have. So like, how does zoning create these experiences with people? How does zoning helps someone's experience living in the city as well? So that's kind of what I started thinking about from your comment.
And I think for me, like, yes, 100% standing in the rain is not a good experience when you try to catch a bus.
No.
But I think some of that lives outside of zoning, and that's just general policy, right? There's no reason other than someone is making the decision not to have bus shelters. Well, the decision's probably based on money too. Like, do you have enough money to do a bus, But then, it's interesting. This is where you get into, not everyone agrees on everything. And it's one of those things that, through the work we do, I think, like, you recognize very quickly, right? Like, some things that seem like straightforward and simple, like doing a bus shelter at every bus stop, you're like, well, there's the money aspect, right? But then there's like this political aspect too, where just like sometimes people don't want bus shelters for people, and it's more than just one person. It feels that way, sometimes, and it's like, what do you do in those situations? And I think, unfortunately, a lot of general policies outside of zoning have been made in the past that prohibit just like comfortable places to live, and efficient transportation systems, or not even efficient, just comfortable, right? I'd rather have a comfortable transportation system than it's like super efficient, like, because I might show up late. It might be all right if the bus is 2 minutes late. It might work out for me, right? But yeah, anyway, like, the zoning for sure, but then I think the policies, and that also impacts, obviously, I'm sure you see it when it comes to like the design of buildings, or landscape architecture, like, and Kenny's been quiet over there, so I wonder what he thinks.
Because Kenny, I'm really interested in how because I know how the zoning affects me as an architect and a designer and stuff, but I wonder, as an architect and designer, how does it affect you? Because landscape and what to call it, just architecture, traditional architecture, what to call it, but we got different things going on, but it all maybe going through a similar process. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, part of I see myself getting called out a lot, because I'll sit back, listen, formulate my thoughts, and then contribute. Some of what we're talking about is zoning, but zoning is pretty big picture. It's 30,000 foot. Some of what we're talking about a little bit is form-based code as well, and I think that's what you're getting at when we're talking about this prescription of policy. And I'll come back to the answer of like how it specifically interacts and directs landscape architecture, but there's, trying to think of how to best formulate this. Before we started, and a lot of the way that I think sometimes comes back to like the intellectual approach, and then also the trust. And I'll try not to come back to that too many times, but outside of when the city conducts an effort, and sometimes they'll look to private consultants to help them conduct one of these efforts, there's a fair amount of method, really strict method, that's applied to come to a final decision. That decision might impact what we think zoning will be. That decision might impact where we're placing bus shelters. If we're looking specifically at every bus stop has a bus shelter, or if we're saying, all right, we only have X number of dollars, are we going to say the bus stops that have the highest use will get a bus shelter, and maybe the highest use with also breaking down the district that it falls into and the dollars that that district specifically has to apply to. So like it keeps on going from there. And one of the things that I find interesting is like sometimes we get frustrated with like planning blight, or like there's so many plans that are done for so many things, and like what are we actually doing with that plan? But also I have a bit of a criticism for myself and other citizens of like, we do all of these plans and sometimes we'll request work is done, so we'll request a solution. To get to that solution, a study or a plan needs to be done, but we kind of conveniently ignore that middle part, and we just want the thing to be done the way that we want it to be done. And it feels as though it's our responsibility to be more active participants in that second portion of, like, we don't have to be a part of every survey, we don't have to be a part of every open house, but we should know what the findings are. And if we disagree with the findings, then that makes complete sense to, like, come up and say, the method, the scientific method that you went about to get to this, even though it's not always scientific, I don't jive with that. Jumping back to the point about how, like, form is impacted by policy and code. There are requirements for parking spaces. There are requirements.
Oh, by the way,
Ooh, hot
that
button?
hot topic.
button?
Parking spaces. Like,
Oh, boy.
you would just wait. I feel like this is gonna be a good discussion going on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a couple things with that.
There are requirements for parking spaces. There are requirements for the number of trees, the type of trees. There's requirements for how much pervious space versus impervious space. There's requirements for how far back off of the street you are able to start placing designed elements.
Setbacks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my controversial statement, not actually, but kind of, is all of those are good things because, going back to my first point, we can't trust everybody.
Yeah.
I wish that we could, but we can't. Like, when you sit down and you have conversations with some developers, they are absolutely on board with, we want to do best design for people. And you sit down with some other developers and they're like, the best thing that I can do is to make as much profit for my stakeholders, for the people that I'm working on behalf of. And it's interesting that both sides of that coin feel as though they're doing the best thing that they can do for the people that they need to do it for. And both of those will be completely 180-degree opposite directions from what somebody else might say is best for public good. So when we go back to the conversation of zoning, form-based code, policy, I don't disagree that it is very strict. I think that it goes back to what you were originally saying about, like, it needs to have a fair amount of context to structure it, because I want to trust everybody. The more time that I spend in this industry, the more I trust people that are, like, at this table. Like, I know that you guys want to do what's best for community. I know that you want to, like, invest in expanding quality of life and quantity of life, because urban design can do that. But I also know that some people aren't thinking with the same metrics of goals, and in their mind they're doing what's absolutely best case scenario, and other people would call that evil.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point too, because within that, I started thinking about, well, I wrote down that zoning drives development, and it drives different types of development. You know, because we talked about transit, different transit lines driving development along those lines of building development, but then zoning also affects infill development, because this whole block used to be houses there, but now like 5 of those houses are gone out of the 10. So how do we infill? And, like, so then when you go and do a development project like that, then you start to affect the lives of those people, those 5 people that live there, because now maybe they can't make it all the way down the block to the house without hitting a pothole or something that was some kind of construction equipment. They have to kind of take a alleyway to get to the house, so they have to maybe go around the block a different way. You know, so I'm just kind of thinking about how zoning can really affect development, but then it also affects the lives of people. Like, I think we were speaking earlier about, like, if a residential zone is right next to an industrial zone, and that industrial zone is creating a lot of pollution, quality of life for those people living right next to it is going to be poor. You know, they may develop diseases like cancer, they may develop even worse conditions, you know, so kind of have to be mindful about how we zone places. And then,
And that's actually actually zoning came about because of that reason, or that's one of the main reasons, because they're like, we just can't have people doing pig farms just out of nowhere, right? Like I was enjoying my experience. Yeah, it's called a nuisance, right? Like, like you can't just be like living your life and someone comes and does a pig farm or a nuclear power plant or whatever the thing is that is hazardous to your life. So
Quick shout out to all of the grade school children that are watching this. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, because that was one of the books that we studied when we were in grade school that touched on why zoning was important.
Hey, I just wanted to pop in really quick and share with you guys the purpose behind the Content Parlor brand. So there's all kinds of aspects to the brand. You got the Content Parlor podcast, you got the Content Parlor studios, you've got photo, video rental, all these live streaming, drone. I just want to break that down. So the first facet, there's really about 3 facets to the Content Parlor brand, and I just want to break that down. The first facet is the one most people have come to recognize. That is the podcast, and really within the podcast, the celebration of creatives, business owners, and entrepreneurs. That's what most people see when they watch the podcast on social media. But there's another aspect to the Content Parlor podcast, or actually 2 within that first facet that are super important. And the first one is that what we're really doing with this podcast is we're showing you guys how you can utilize the photo studio. That's really what we're doing. The Content Parlor, when you think of the Content Parlor, it's for you. It's not for us. We already have Stable Gray. That's our business where we pay our bills, do our business, acquire our clients, all of that good stuff. That's Stable Gray. We already have that. This is not a revenue hustle for us. Now, we do need to raise money, and I'm going to come back to that. But the real purpose behind the Content Parlor brand is for you. It's to empower you and to give you access to the cameras, the lighting, the microphones, the lenses, everything that we use on the podcast. The podcast itself shows you how you can do the same. Last but not least, as we fundraise, we will like to ask the general public to help us with that initiative. It may look like we have a ton of equipment, but we're just getting started. Yeah, we've got some microphones here. Yeah, we've got a backdrop, but it's nothing compared to what is state of the art that's out there. There's a lot more that we can do, and we believe with your support we can do it. So we appreciate your support and your help. And please, please continue to engage with us. It helps so much. And we want to hear more and more success stories. I just met with a gal today who's looking to rent the studio. Super bright, intelligent, got some amazing stuff going on. And it just feels good to be able to help people get where they're trying to go with their businesses. All right, so that's all I got today. Hopefully you're excited. I'm super duper excited. The Content Parlor is growing. People are getting access to equipment and rental services, things that they can do to grow their business. This is how you build the community. We're always talking about what can we do to build our community? What can we do to make things better? This is how we do it. When people have access to better information, they make better buying decisions. When people know about you, they shop with you. This gives you access to that. It gives you the power to reach people. So let's continue to build together. This is the Content Parlor, and this belongs to us. This is our community. Are we doing a good job of modernizing Omaha? And then diving deeper within that, I think we should, on this topic, talk about the airport business park that's under hot discussion right now, right? Very controversial, displaces a lot of people. So if everything goes through, I know I and probably some other people at the table sat in on some of those meetings and heard how underdeveloped the plan was to actually execute that, and then also realizing that the original plot of land that was going to be used for the airport business park is essentially uninhabitable to some effect. So yeah, I mean that's a large area in Omaha that we're talking about this now. So yeah, are we doing a good job? And then let's talk about that.
Yeah, from my perspective, I feel like we are doing a good job, but also I'm a person who's just, I love to dream, right? Like dreams to live for. Like I love to be a visionary and stuff. So when I go around different places, I have different experiences. I always think about opportunity and creating opportunity. And I see that Omaha has a tremendous opportunity. I think Omaha was also rated #1 place to live in 2024.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think there's a lot of opportunity here for Omaha. There's a lot of new facilities that popped up, like Steelhouse, and I know a bunch of other places that are bringing more artists to Omaha, more different acts, people coming here for different reasons. And so that makes me really excited, But then with the airport business park and that opportunity there, I had an opportunity to listen in and hear some of the residents' concerns. And primarily what I was hearing was that they want to know who is a part of this board that's going to bring about this change to our neighborhood. We want to know that we can trust them. We want to vet them ourselves too. We know you vetted them, but I don't know if I trust your process, as Kenny was saying. Like I want to kind of go through my own process and properly vet these people, But then also people are concerned that their land will be taken from them, that they'll be displaced. And I know that the Port Authority doesn't have that power of eminent domain and be able to take someone's land. But I believe that because I was nominated and elected to be on the board for this, so I think that my role within the Port Authority is to bridge the gap between the community and the development, because I don't want to displace anyone. I know that property taxes are going to go up, and Manne and I are on a part of a board, the Greenlining Fund, that's looking to institute practices or some type of thing that we can do to help mitigate people's taxes and that increase that they'll be experiencing. And we're looking to give out home equity loans and possibly home equity grants where people could age in place or kind of adapt their homes and create more value for themselves. So I'm interested in how we do that. How do we bridge the gap? How do we help these people in their concerns? How do we help them feel more comfortable with this change coming to the neighborhood? And if it happens to be a moment where someone may possibly get displaced, how do we take care of them in the right way, the proper way, so that if they do move to a different location, that they won't lose that home, they won't lose that property, or if they have that property else paid off, we gotta give them another property that's paid off. We can't just gotta do an even exchange or even upgrade. I'll rather upgrade them than to just do something even.
I think some people will hear that and get some refreshing thoughts from that, because I think when you talk about, I just want to clear this up with the eminent domain piece, just so that the public understands, like the Port Authority doesn't have the right to come and execute eminent domain on each individual parcel. So how does that work, so people understand that?
That's correct. And so just the Port Authority just doesn't have that power. I mean, I think that's a power that may be reserved for the city or
it's just not a
governing
state
body.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not something that the Port Authority can do. And maybe as we develop a plan and maybe some people's land are affected, I think we should work with them, and maybe we can't come to an agreement, then I think we should just move on rather than trying to take that person's property. I don't think that's right in my mind. So
Okay. Interesting. What are your thoughts on is Omaha being modernized properly? Do you think that we're doing it in a proper way, or is there some gaps and things that we could do better to modernize Omaha? Or do you want to keep it old?
Yeah, I like how you frame that.
Yeah, there's a right answer here. Respond
you
to
tell
this.
me which one.
I think that I've been respectfully critical of and respectfully, constructively critical of the way that we've been making change in the city. And with that, I'll give some praise first off.
Okay.
when talking to some people that are older than 45, they talk about how Omaha was and how Omaha is, and some of the positive changes that they've seen in parks and open spaces, in development, in like the new spaces that we're seeing, like Steelhouse. I'm going to expand Omaha to the metro. The work that's happening in La Vista Papillion,
Council Bluffs?
Gretna as well. Council Bluffs as
Yeah,
well.
Council
Yes,
Bluffs is
Council
kinda
Bluffs.
big.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
they got some
Council
things
Bluffs
going.
and more.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good work is happening. If I were to be a bit critical, I'd say that, and this isn't even my point. I'm taking ownership of a point that Dewan raised like years ago, where he before third place was as big of a buzzword as it is now. He was talking about where can our kids, teens, that in-between range, and even young adults and adults go that's not home, that's not school, that's not work, that is also free. And yes, there's park access, but parks aren't
Yeah.
community centers. There can be programming, but it's not accessible 365. Where are those safe spaces? And beyond that, what I'll add to that argument is how do people navigate to those spaces without the necessity of a vehicle, a personal vehicle? The expansion of orbit and transit lines, that is phenomenal. And it's a huge challenge to think through how do we take this pot of finite resources, because everybody has them, everybody has finite amount of resources, and how do we expand access and frequency and improve the technology? And it's like one of those triangles that we all saw in college of like you can sleep, get good grades, and have a social life, and like pick two, you can only have two. And I appreciate the good work that's gone into trying to expand that, but when we talk about dreaming, like my dreams are unrealistic because I want an expanded transit system that will take me everywhere for free, super quickly, that I can bike all the way through the city without realizing that there's hills, that I can...
You have that though. You have that.
My legs don't...
E-bikes.
Oh, fair. Yeah.
That's a solid point. I would say with restrictions, right? It's
There's some hills that
philosophically,
there's still gonna be a hill.
Yeah. But like expand, and we touched on this a little bit outside of this discussion of if we took all of the dreamers and the technical dreamers in this city, put them into a space at the same time, and said, what is the best case scenario for Omaha, Nebraska? I would love to see what that is, and I would love that to be the start of like the comprehensive planning.
Let's do it. It starts right here.
It starts right here. Because like mobility as a service sounds like I would love to see what a mass mobility as a service system looks like within the context of Omaha, without the confinement of budget, time frame, and politics. Like just what is that best case scenario, and then how do we move that from the dreamers to the technical dreamers to the technicians who actually want to think through how the nuts and bolts work. And it won't look anything like the first thing, but it'll almost look like a weird amalgamation of that first idea. And I'm interested in that.
I'm surprised that no one has touched on like the construction side of it, although we kind of didn't really ask that question, but yeah, what about the construction side of it? Why don't we see anything like precast on east of 72nd so much, except for maybe downtown? Why don't we see modern methods used to build houses and things to help drive the cost down and things like that? Is that because of the overarching plans, or is there something else
No,
at
well,
play?
sometimes it's like what you're allowed to build with what you're allowed to build. you know, again, the form of a building. But some of it's like money, right? That's a big part. Yeah, money is probably like the main part of a lot of those decisions, right? Because you can't talk about construction without money, because someone has to get paid to do the thing, like to grow, right? But
Yeah.
real quick, I'm gonna go back to that last question.
Go ahead.
I think Omaha is doing all right, and I think we can get to like that ideal space, and like not to be like we're never gonna get there. We got to keep shooting for it. We gotta get that group
We're
going.
just gonna shoot. As
Yeah.
people know, with me being the best basketball player at this team.
That's right. It's true. Kenny is the best basketball player. You should challenge him.
Yeah.
Well, I can't accept any challenges because we already know that it's been
It's been decided.
It's a
You're
fact.
right.
Keep going though. Sorry.
No, but I mean, I think, you know, we can do it. Like, you know, it's hard to sometimes not get like kind of like jaded on the process. Like, you know, it does suck when it's unfortunate when people like water down, you know, something that could be really great because of, you know, this, that, or the other. But like without shooting for that goal if you don't go for like what could be the best outcome, then you'll never get close to your point of why I think that idea is a good one to get all the dreamers together, you know. So.
All really, really good points. I've learned a lot so far today, so I'm interested to continue to unpack. There's been a trend, especially in districts, with the road diets, with retooling, reworking the roads, and even the streetscaping, right? The
parking.
The parking, yeah, the frontage, the trees. I saw in Blackstone, they just chopped down all the trees in front of a few different like classical, like older style buildings over there.
There's a reason for that, I think.
Yeah, what is the reason?
No, there's
That
no
doesn't
reason
work.
to hate trees. Is what it is.
Because we're
in the
killing
environment.
trees.
So, two things before we get into the specific reason for what's, I think, depends on the area of Blackstone we're talking about.
Okay.
You're right about road diets. You're right about like the more urban fabric is in a space and makes you feel as though you're constricted in that space if you're driving a vehicle, the more likely you are to slow in that space. That's been known for years, and any community that isn't building on those principles is doing so knowing full well that their back is turned to
Reality.
yeah.
Well, Kenny, I just want to bring up in Chicago, if you're driving by a park district and you go over like a little bit over 5 over the speed limit, say you go 6 over the speed limit, you get flashed, you got $100 ticket. So that's a different kind of road diet.
Wow. That's actually, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want that, but go ahead, continue.
No, that's good. The trees coming down, because they came down in front of our office as well, and we're in the old market.
Okay.
And specifically along the route of the future streetcar, because of the overhead line for that, or because of the infrastructure that's needed for that, some of those trees are coming down.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the drawings to see what the expansion is, because like the streetcar project is the streetcar project, and like talking to some of the designers, they are vying for expansion to also the streetscape, trying to make sure that there's thought and design in that, because if, as we all know, if you're going to spend money in place one, you better spend the money to do it right, even if it's 105% of the budget, because the likelihood that you're going to come back to that space in the next 20 years, slim to none. So it'll be interesting to see. But if that's the area that you're thinking of, that might be the reason why those are coming down.
Well, I just want to hit on that too, because it ties into a lot of things we said before. It's like, you know, what is the quality of the place? What's the experience of the place, right? Yeah, trees are good, but if you're going to have a streetcar, you got to make some accommodations and some, you know, what is it going to feel like, and how do you make the landscape fit the use, and vice versa.
What's the dream though?
Huh?
What's the dream though?
It's
The best case scenario is like, how do we figure out how to have both of these because the
Yeah.
challenge is like when you take down, and I know that I
The
was
trees.
like defending a second ago, or like given the context, but
Yeah.
at the same time, when those trees that have been up for I'm not sure how long, 30, 40 years, when those are gone, sure, maybe you can bring in a tree that is X number of years less than 10 years old, and maybe you specify that it's air pruned and it's going to grow a little bit faster, but you need to invest another 3 decades to have the tree that you had before.
Yeah.
So like, what's that delta? I cut you off. Though.
Yeah, I was
No,
kind
well,
of thinking of like, what if we did a different kind of landscape or different kinds of plants? You know, if it's not a tree, what if it's like native prairie grass or something, or some other way to kind of still have that ecosystem plant life there, but it's just not a tree. It's still oxygen though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, the
I want to go.
No, you're
You know where I'm going. My favorite thing about trees, though, is the shade.
Oh yeah.
Like, you can't beat the shade of a tree and, like, the experience of being under a tree. You know, you can do a canopy and, you know, and that's cool. It can be nice, but, like having, like, a good canopy is, like, it's hard to beat, I feel like.
Yeah, it is.
But real quick, like, just the fact that, you know, streetcar, airport business park, all the things happening North 24th Street, all the things happening North Omaha, downtown, you know, all over the place, you know, just to go back real quick, like, is Omaha modernizing right? Well, we'll find out, but it is progressing right now, right? So just want to throw that in there and, you know, tell everyone about how much I like trees. So.
I didn't actually know that because I know we've had some discussions about our frontage on 24th Street, because while those benefits are easily recognizable once you point it out, there's also the obstruction of visibility, the limiting factor in terms of being able to
Walkability.
walk and also promote, right? And then parking as well, right? Because trees restrict parking. So I was just curious, why such a passion for it when urban design includes other aspects as well? Is it just because trees are so precious and they're hard to replace?
I mean, trees are nature. We live in nature. This is like totally. I'm gonna go ahead and like pass this one to Kenny so he can dunk it. I can see.
No, you start.
No. I just mean like it's just, you know, when I look at planning spaces, or like when you're looking at like the livability of space, it's hard to disconnect nature. And I mean, like, I'm not saying you want a raccoon necessarily, but raccoons exist and they were here before us, right? You know, and so like we can't just displace all the nature. Like, we can find ways to, you know, like bring it into the city. You know, I think a lot of times in the past or in general, people will look at like, oh, we should put a park over here, and then everything else will just be like parking, and then we'll have some houses around that. And it's like, I mean, but that's not a great experience. What if you had like green spaces that move through your city, right? Like you know, that walk down the street is shaded now, and you know, maybe there's like, you know, trees can be beautiful too, right? Like,
For sure.
you know, and I think like not just trees, but to your point, like the native landscapes. How do you like create a like more of an environment than just a street, right? Make it an environment, make it like a really great place, but.
Because I would say, like, even if I was walking to a specific destination, I may walk on one street versus another because I like the experience better. You know, and I think that's inherent to all of us in some way, shape, or form. You know, because we all probably had someone cross the street on us as we were walking, but then we probably didn't want to go down the street because of what was down that street.
Or who was down that
Or
street?
who was down that street, right? Or what kind of trouble you can get into in that certain area, you know. So it's about enhancing the experience. And like you said, visibility, especially as a business owner, you want people to be able to see your business. You want that building, you want people to see it. So they be like, oh, that's what Stable Gray is, and they come right over, you know. And maybe they didn't know at first because the tree is right there blocking the sign, you know. But then how do we get the shade back? So it's a lot of science that kind of goes into a lot of, you got to think it through when we do placemaking, you know. Back to you, Kenny.
They're both benefits of like visibility to the store and all of the benefits of like an enhanced nature experience in an urban setting. They're not mutually exclusive. More so than removing trees, slowing down traffic in front of your storefront, that's what's going to bring business in. Like we think that we are, and we are like incredibly complex beings as individuals, and then you infinitesimally expand that complexity when you think of us as societies and groupings. But sometimes we are as simple as we appear, where person slow in front of store, person stop in and buy from store.
Yeah, you can see the donuts or the coffee or the whatever is inside the shop, or like what they do, and be like, I'm gonna check that out. Yeah.
What's not simple though are like the expanded benefits of natural systems. We have a project in Marion, Iowa, and if you take your bike to Marion, you get on their bike trails and you're moving through their community, beautifully done, specifically because you will transition from being next to a pond, trees surrounding it, literally deer on either side of this trail, and the next block over you'll be like driving or riding past a school. You'll feel cooler next to this body of water and these trees. The deer feel comfortable enough in this environment to like be drinking water. Here somebody is riding their bike by, pop their head up, now they're cool, go back to what they're doing. And it feels like a Disney movie. But the expanded benefits of cleaning carbon from the atmosphere, for cooling our environments and mitigating the heat island effect. If we want to get a little bit more nerdy, the mycelial network, so like the fungal bodies that are in the soil, some research will say that there's up to like 3 or 4 times the amount of carbon capture in spaces that have a strong mycelial network as compared to spaces that we typically see in our cities that don't, because it's amended soils. It doesn't have the time to have vegetative mass die, decompose, and add to this natural system. We've taken like true nature and we've
displaced it.
We've stripped out everything, so it almost looks like it's natural, except the birds don't live there, the bees can't live there, and now we're seeing the secondary, tertiary effects of that and asking, why isn't this working? It's because we're trying to remove these things that are part of the system that we're still integral parts of, and like you said, displace them so that they're out of sight and out of mind. I'm pro tree in urban area. I'm pro native planting in urban area. We have to do it intentionally and contextually, specifically because like some of the native plants that we used to have were taller than any of us in this room. So we have variations of them that work well within our modern setting, but we still need to move them away from streets so that the kid that loses a ball through a tall grass doesn't accidentally move into a street. We have to think through that, but we also have the opportunity to, I talked about the hypersimplification of like who we are and what we do, but at the same time, there's like a beautiful complexity to all of that in the sense that phytoremediation is using plants to remove toxins. I don't hear that enough. I think it's a cool thing. I want us to do more of that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's
So about
something
parking.
that
Who cares about the parking?
I was actually going there next. So with touching on the road diet thing and parking, those somewhat go hand in hand. But kind of lead us away on that. How do we solve this parking issue, especially when I don't want to claim to know that this is true or not, but I've heard that we're not keeping up with the replacement rate of housing and the growth rate, and especially in Omaha. So how do we have enough parking, but then also have enough places for people to live? Like what are ways that we're navigating that?
Can I ask a pre-question?
Yeah.
What is enough parking?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have an answer to that because I don't work in that space, but
I'd
it's a
open it
good
up
question.
Well, and I would have a pre-question too. Would be like, when you go to a place, do you sit in the parking lot and be like, oh, this is great, this is fantastic, this is this is what I came here for. This is the experience I've been looking for, is the parking space. No, it's about the space, and I think today a lot of people drive, right? And I'm not saying that that's going to change abruptly, but I think you see it changing a little bit, right? Whether it's because people want to live in places where you can walk down the street to get to this and that, and then you don't have to drive, so you don't need that car for that trip. You can call Uber, you know. If you have good public transportation, you need less cars, right? And these experiences are generally oftentimes better than driving a car. Like, I'm talking about commute. I'm not talking about
Sure.
native Omaha days. Like, like sometimes you want to ride and you want to chill and you want to show off and you want to, like, have the experience of just driving. I get that. Some people like that. I'm more of a bike rider myself. However, I get it, right? But I think, like, it's like in your everyday, are you like, man, I can't wait to drive over there? I think it's like the more you can reduce the need for a car to get to everywhere, the less parking you need and the more places you can have, right? And the higher quality places. So, and then generally, like, until, and then the placement of parking too, right? How do you do that in a way that is also saving space for these other things, right? So it's like, if you need a certain amount of parking, plan for that, don't, I say don't. I strongly recommend you don't just put it in front of whatever you're doing. Like, if you put it behind, people still find it and get to the space, but it's also like, parking can oftentimes offset the quality of an environment as well. So, it's parking, when I look at it, comes last, and then that's one of those things you have to, like, accommodate for or make accommodations for the parking, but not let it drive the type of place you're trying to live in or design, right? So how much parking is too much parking? I think, like, you look at Oakview Mall, right? If parking made a place, like, fantastic, Oakview Mall would be great right now, right? Shout out to Oakview Mall. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, like, you see, like, if you put too much parking in a space, or if you design for the parking first, you really kill the opportunity for that space to be a great space or a great place, I feel like. So, again, it's contextual, right? Like, so 24th Street, right? That's like kind of where the office is. So, I think parking behind, maybe find some more, like, get a lot, build a parking garage, maximize that type of parking when you can, and centralize it. And then you can build around it, right? You think of, like, downtown places in other cities. Like, I studied in Amsterdam. Like, talk about parking. Like, they have it. It's underground. It's well maintained. But, like, since there's so many other ways to get around, it's just a better quality of life space. So, depends is the answer, right? Like,
and it's really interesting to hear your perspective on that, because as architect, I have to kind of account for that as I'm designing, because zoning and the type of building we're creating or what type of facility it is, it kind of dictates that.
Yeah.
Like in a business setting, you need one parking spot per 300 square feet.
Yeah.
So, like, that's kind of dictating how much parking you need, right?
I feel like we need to change that rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, like, don't you miss not having to drive? Not having to, like, because I told you about that 2.5 hour bus ride just one way for school for me. Imagine having to drive. I probably would took me an hour and a half. But on that ride, I got to do homework. Got to read different books and stuff. I remember The Lightning Thief. That's a book I really, like, fell in love with growing up. Because I stopped by Target because I was waiting on the bus. Stopped by Target. I was like, oh, this looks interesting, and I just started reading it on my way home, and something I actually loved. And, like, even to this day, I'll tell mentees of mine, like, hey, why don't you read this book? So, like, I kind of miss not having to drive, but driving feels good because I can get from point A to point B quicker, So, it kind of has its trade-offs, So I wonder kind of what is the appropriate response. Like, how should we, as a society, design our city so that way people that don't have a car could get around. If you didn't want to drive that day, you could still get from point A to point B easily, So you kind of open up choice for people and for the community. And then last thing I want to talk about is like zoning, because zoning, like I said, dictates that. So like if you're at neighborhood business district, there's no parking requirement.
Yeah.
You know, so like everyone probably wants neighborhood business district to have their building in the neighborhood business district, just because there's no parking requirement.
Best zoning you can have
You know,
in
But then-
Omaha right now,
yeah,
currently.
Yeah, and but what does that say about the community? It says that this community needs to be walkable. There needs to be other ways, like needs bike racks in case people ride their bike to this area. You know, and so we just have to make sure all encompassing. It still goes back to that experience. You know, what experiences are we providing for the people? So.
And the one other thing I'll add to, like, you know, trade off between parking, driving, that sort of thing, commuting, long commutes and such, is like also quality of life in a lot of ways, right? Because, you know, walking 2 or 3 blocks if you're able, right? And so like, one, accommodate for, you know, parking for people who can't walk long distances and that sort of thing. But in general, like walking 2, 3 blocks, walking more often, you'll live longer. So, I mean, parking's like smoking.
Dang,
Driving is like smoking.
that's a hot take right there.
Yeah.
So,
Man, that's tough, man. I'll park all the way at the end of the parking lot.
I know.
So I'll walk all the way to the end. I park furthest away. So.
You probably live like a few more minutes.
Yeah, that's actually
You know,
a block.
like-
I need my few minutes, man.
Yeah, I know. We all do, right?
So adding to that, American Heart Association did a study, and they said that they found that for every dollar spent in like trails, like stuff that we work on, it equates to $3 saved by the community in health expenses.
Dang.
The going back to a lot of this conversation around like, okay, like we've got ideas about how to minimize parking and how to expand the quantity of life that people have by expanding the quality of life that they have. But there is this balance between expectation and our like will, if you will. We can say, like, all right, cool, we think that it's actually best if you reduce your parking by 50 to 75%, and somebody will say, and sometimes I'm that somebody as well, will say, like, I really like having that parking spot right in front, especially when it's negative 20 degrees.
Yeah.
And so there's, sometimes I like to, I give myself this little thought experiment of if culture is the representation of our values, like if design is the representation of our culture, if all of us were gone and then like aliens came to this planet, or like somebody was dusting off some archaeological finding from, and they found the lost city of Omaha from 2 million years ago,
Yeah.
like, wow, damn, they really loved parking. Wow. And they really cared a lot about their sports venues. I think they called it the CHI. No, actually, I think they called it the
Charles Schwab.
Charles Schwab. Oh no, I think it's called the CenturyLink.
I don't know what it's called.
They love those things like crazy. Like, what would people think that we cared about based on what we've built? And what's the, like, do people need to care about living longer first, and then we are able to adapt parking requirements and their expectation and their demand for it? Or do we need, like, does the dog wag the tail, or does the tail wag the dog?
It sounds like it's like lifestyle. You know, it's kind of really based on your lifestyle and like what your personal values are, so to speak, and then you kind of end up in this collective of people that kind of have matching values, and you kind of go with that. So if our values were to ride bikes as much as we could, you know, we would all be riding bikes. We probably all would have rode our bike here, you know, if that was the case.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting like topic, like well, even question. I don't know if it's a question or statement.
Yeah.
You know, but it makes me think. You know what you just said, because I mean, I want people to think that I care about people. You know, I care about the way our experiences are in the community. You know, if I have a place that I can go and just kind of woosah and relax my mind, you know, I want to be able to go find that place. You know, I care about those kinds of things. But you know, if someone a million years from now the dust is off, they probably wouldn't see any of that. You know. So yeah, it got me thinking, man. Like, what can I do to continue that movement to push those values forward. You know?
Very deep. Well, yeah, it's been a really good discussion. We can never hit every single topic on one episode. It's just too much to unpack with urban design in general. But I appreciate each and every one of you coming today and talking about these things. Let's do it again. Can we guys come back?
Thank you.
Most definitely.
Yes. So that's going to wrap up. Any final thoughts before we close out? Want to give you guys a second to thank your baby mom or whatever.
You touched on like ethos a little bit, like what drives you, and at the end of the day, I am just trying to do capital G good work with capital G good people, and it's been cool to like meet good people who are also doing good work.
I will say, yeah, one comment to piggyback on that is it's good to see some people of color really impacting in this space. I know that even as recently as like the 90s, we haven't had the voice, that we have now to be able to sit at these tables and have leadership discussions about these things. So appreciate you guys being the pioneers in a sense in Omaha and like really carving a path. And then, I heard about mentorship. I think that's one of the reasons why my life changed in my teen years is because of having a young mentor. I think my mentor was in insurance or something like that. But he had the new car, he had the shirt on when he came to pick me up, and I grew up in the hood, so I didn't have a lot of male leadership. So hats off to you for taking time out to do that, because we could be doing anything, right?
Yeah, and I had people pour into me in the same way. So every time I asked them, how could I ever repay you for this? They say, pay it forward. So I was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And then even because Manne mentioned at the beginning of the segment, that how you find that space, like being an architect, being black, black architects are 2% of the profession. And I didn't see any growing up. I just kind of had that question that led me to Google, which led me to where I'm doing now. But I would say I'm living my dream, and it's because I kind of stayed focused. I always had that goal in mind to use architecture and design to better people's lives, and I think that's what we're doing even with this podcast episode, and because we're bringing these things to light for people, and they're gonna have questions, and we're gonna be prepared to answer it. So yeah.
So is it Chicago or Omaha if you had to pick? Let me put them on the spot real quick.
I ain't living in Chicago, man, so I'm gonna pick Omaha. But I miss the food back home. I miss my family. But other than that, I'm in a place I need to be right now. Just here. So.
See, what I just heard him say is he doesn't like Omaha food, and we're not family. Okay.
Chicago in summer is nice, man.
I didn't hear anything else you said except for that, actually.
You get down there by the lake in the summertime, Chicago feel like you're on the West Coast or East Coast or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just when it get nighttime, go home. That's all.
Yeah. I guess I would just say, just like being grateful because, talking about like is or how is Omaha progressing, but it is. And I think if you look back 10 years ago and you look to now, you'll see like a lot of change, positive change, right? Like you could look at the landscape, right? But I think you look at the people, right? I think there's been a lot of positive change, whether you're looking at like everything 24th Street, things happen 16th, like you said, the fact that we're here talking about this in this way, there's a lot to be grateful for. And the good thing is, it's kind of just getting started, right? Or it's not just going to be done. Like, you talk about, Airport Business Park, you talk about comprehensive plan, you talk about all the things happening, like those are happening now, but then we get to live through that, experience that, and continue to live in that environment that we create. So it's like, there's a lot to look forward to. So just being grateful and thankful to that.
Shout out Spark Developer Academy, man. I saw, what's his name, Davielle?
Davielle, yeah.
He just broke ground on, I think, 3 properties down there on 24th Street.
Yep,
nice.
Right on the North Omaha Trail.
Yep.
Trail oriented.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out Trail. Shout out North Omaha Trail.
Little trogdor.
Yeah. Well, cool. That's going to conclude this episode. Before you go, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell button for notifications. That's it today on the Content Parlor. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.